Hello everyone. Welcome to your first online literacy class. For those who don't know me, I'm Miss Rosa. I'm going to be teaching you literacy on Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Please get your pencils and notebooks ready and take notes. Writing the notes will actually help you remember the information better. Alright, let's get to it. Today's lesson is two parts. Part 1, we will be talking about what are newspaper reports and what is their structure. Part 2, we will be talking about the features of a newspaper report. Let's start our lesson. First, what is a newspaper report? A newspaper report is a type of text that tells you about a real-life event. It tells you what happened and how it happened. It often contains pictures and quotes. By quotes, we mean repeating what someone said exactly like it is. This is an example of a quote. We use quotation marks like these or speech marks. The essentials first. Here, essential means important. So what do we mean by essentials first? In newspaper reports, we need to present the most important information first. Why? So that the reader can decide if they want to read more about that topic or not. The structure of a news report goes like this. First we have headline, and then first paragraph, body, and the last paragraph. It goes like this. We have the headline in black, we have the first paragraph in purple, we have the body in dark blue, and we have the last paragraph in green. You might wonder about these group of words that are written in the beginning of the paragraphs. We will be talking about them in detail in the features of a newspaper report, so don't worry about that. Alright, let's talk about headlines. Headlines are basically the first thing you see when you read the newspaper report. So, because they are the first thing we see, they need to tell us what is the report talking about. Also, they need to be very interesting that they catch the reader's attention and they get the reader to read about the newspaper report. Our headline must be in present tense. Okay, moving on to the first paragraph. First paragraphs are very important. Just like the headline, they are at the beginning of the newspaper report. So they need to tell us what is the newspaper report all about. First paragraphs are need to be written in a way even if the reader stopped reading, they should still know what happened. First paragraphs, again, just like headlines, should be interesting because they are the first thing we see. But unlike headlines, they should be written in past tense. First paragraph should answer at least one of these questions. Here's an example of a first paragraph. Here, the first paragraph answers one of the questions of who was involved and what happened. So here our first paragraph answers two questions of what and who. Also, to catch readers' attention, there is a small question here. The small question was put here to make the reader curious and read the rest of the newspaper report. The body is basically providing you with more detail, including background information, facts, and quotes. This is an example of a body that has a fact and provided you with some quotations. the last paragraph. The last paragraph should again tell you what happened very briefly and also explain what might happen next. For example, here in this last paragraph, we summed up the entire newspaper report very shortly, and we are talking about future plans. We are talking about what the school is planning to do next. Let's recap. Pause the video and write all the structures of the newspaper report we've learned about. Okay, welcome back to the video. Now let's look at the answers. I hope you all got it correct. Now I want you all to pause again and write something about each one of the structures. Okay, welcome back again. Let's look at the answers. Headline. A headline sums up the event in few words. It should be very interesting and it should be in present tense. Let's look at the first paragraph. The first paragraph should answer at least one of these core questions: who, what, where, when, why, how. Meaning, or in other words, the first paragraph again should tell us what happened very briefly. We should also write the first paragraph in past tense. Now, let's look at the body. The body provides you more information and detail. Information like background, evidence, and quotes. Now, let's look at the last paragraph. The last paragraph should talk about what might happen next. Now we reached part 2 of our lesson. We will be learning about the features of a newspaper. Why do we need features in a newspaper? So, newspapers have a range of features that attract the reader. We are using these features to make the newspaper report more interesting. Now, let me see if you can think of some of the features. All right. Newspaper reports must include an interesting headline, and then we should have subheadings. We also must have a paragraph that talks about what happened in the newspaper report briefly. We must have facts about the main event. Quotations are nice if you could put them in there, and we should also have a last paragraph that explains what might happen next. Okay, a headline. Newspapers use headline to grab readers' attention to their newspaper report. Therefore, your headline should be interesting and catchy. That's why some of the headlines have alliteration in them, or the words rhyme with each other. Like this headline and this headline. Alright, now we came to subheadings that tell you what each paragraph is about before you even read the paragraph. Here we have in bold an example of a subheading. After a 6-month stay on the International Space Station, astronauts returned home. Before we even look at the first paragraph, we already know what it's going to be about. Why? Because we have the subheading in there. First paragraphs. Newspaper reports begin with the first paragraph that tells you what the report is about. And they should answer at least one of these WH questions. The WH questions are: what happened, when did it happen, where did it happen, who was involved, and why did it happen. Now let's look at this first paragraph and see how many answers to these WH questions we can find. There are answers to 5 WH questions. Now let's look at the answers. We have last week, the British astronauts, home, stay abroad in the International Space Station, these two names, Yuri and Timothy. So last week is an answer for when. The British astronaut Tim Peake is an answer for who. Home is an answer for where. Again, stay abroad the International Space Station is an answer to where. And then, sorry, these two names are answers to who. Tim Peake was with who. Facts about the main events. When you're talking about an event in your newspaper report, you should present facts. You should present information that are true. Decide which of these sentences you think are facts and which of them are opinions. I am the smartest person in the class. Yellow is the best color. You shouldn't go swimming in the sea. It took the runner 84 days to complete the extreme race. Mrs. James lives at 103 Blake Drive. The truck arrived to pick up the jewels at 3 o'clock. Please pause the video and arrange all these sentences to facts and opinions. Welcome back to the video. Let's look at the answers. Good job. Quotes. When we use quotes in our newspaper report, we make our newspaper report more believable. We make it stronger and trustable because we are bringing quotes from the people who were directly involved in the event we are writing about. These are examples of some quotations. If you notice, all the quotations are between these two little marks. They are called speech marks. Also, it is very important to use the correct punctuation when you use quotation. If, like this example, you are putting the speaker after the quote, you must have a comma in there at the end of the quotation. Again, here too we have the name of the speaker at the end. So what we did was to put the comma at the end of the quote. In this example, we have the name of the speaker before the quotation begins. During these checks, Peake was asked how it felt to be home. Here, since we wrote the name of the speaker before, we just put a comma before the quotation starts. We write our quote and end the quote with a full stop. Another example of quotation. Now we came to the last paragraph. As we learned about it in part 1, last paragraph should tell the reader what might happen next. We have this newspaper report on some lucky winners that won the lottery. We didn't include the last paragraph yet. Now let's look at the last paragraph. Here the last paragraph talks about on how the winners are planning to use their money. Therefore, we have a plan for future. Recap activity. Let's recap the features of a newspaper report. I'm going to show you a text. Please pause the video and try to find all the features of a newspaper report in the text. This is the text. Welcome back to the video. Let's look at the answers. Here we have Mars Mayhem as our headline. we have all our subheadings, our first paragraph, our first paragraph. Here, our first paragraph is talking about what happens in the newspaper report briefly. It also answers the WH questions we talked about. Also, to make the first paragraph interesting, we use this adjective marvelous in our subheading for the first paragraph. Marvelous here is a strong adjective which automatically makes the subheading for our first paragraph more interesting. And the first part of marvelous sounds like Mars, so it is kind of play on words. Also, we put a little question in there to make the reader curious. Then we have our bodies. These are the body paragraphs. The underlined sentences are all facts. We have our last paragraph. Our last paragraph talks about future, as you can see in the sentences that are underlined in blue. Alright, that's the end of our lesson. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments. For our next lesson on Tuesday, we will be looking at more example of newspaper report. I will also go through reading comprehension questions about the text and how to solve them. See you on Tuesday!